brothers and sisters, brother G World 7_D. This is book again, Ancient America in Notes on American Archaeology. Now I may use this book a couple more times to film some videos. I'm gonna go to page 96 because this is a pretty good book. Page 96. All right, let's start right here. Okay, and we get clear. Right here, characters in southern ruins. Should you visit the ruins of one of the most mysterious old cities, you will see scattered over a large area great edifices in different stages of decay, which were erected on the level summits of low pyramidal mounds or platforms. The summits of these mounds are usually of sufficient extent to furnish space for extensive terraces or grounds, as well as rooms for buildings. The edifices were built of hewn stone laid in a mortar of lime and sand, the masonry being admirable, and the ornamentation, in most cases, very abundant. The pyramid foundations of earth were faced with heaped stone and provided with great stone stairways. These, we may be surprised, were the most important buildings in the old city. The ordinary dwellings and all the other less important structures must have been made chiefly of wood or some other material, which had perished entirely long ago and left no trace, for at present the remains are no more visible than those of the forest leaves which grew 500 years ago. One explorer of Palenque says, "For 5 days did I wander up and down among these crumbling monuments of a city which, I hazard a little in saying, must have been one of the largest ever seen. There is, however, nothing to show a certainty the actual size of any of these ancient cities. It is a manifest that some of them were very large, but as the only great structures made of stone remains to be examined, the actual extent of the area covered by the other buildings cannot be determined." The chief peculiarities of these ruins, that which especially invites attention, is the evidence that they furnish that their builders had remarkable skill in architecture and architectural orientation. All who have visited them bear witness that the workmanship was of high order. The rooms and corridors in these edifices were finely and often elaborately furnished, plastered, stuccoed, and sculptured being used. In one room of a great building at Uxmal, Mr. Stevens says, the walls were coated with a very fine plaster of Paris, equal to the best seen on the walls in this country. Speaking of the construction of the edifice, he says, throughout the laying and polishing of the stones are as perfect as under the rules of the best modern masonry. All the ruins explorers have masonry of the same character. The floors, especially of quartz and corridors, were made somewhat of flat stone admirably wrought and finely polished, and sometimes of cement, which is now as hard as stone. Mr. Stevens, describing corridors of the palace at Palenque, says the floors are of cement, as hard as the best seen in remains of Roman baths and cisterns. He shows two illustrations. Now, one is this is an artist's rendition of one, and this is the other. The structures that was found here in ancient America. Let's go back. The ornamentation is no less remarkable than the masonry and architecture furnished. It is found on the walls within and without, and appears in elaborate designs and heavy cornices. The exterior ornamentation is generally carved or sculpted on the smooth surface of the stone. It must have required a vast amount of time and labor, as well as skillful artists. In some of the ruins, inscriptions are abundant, being found on walls, tablets, and pillars. The general effect of the exterior decoration is thus described by Mr. Stevens in an account of his view of the ruins at Palenque. We saw before us a large building richly ornamented with stuccoed figures and plasters, curious and elegant. Trees growing close to it, and their branches entering the doors. The style and effect of structure and ornament uniquely, extraordinary, and mournfully beautiful. In the description of the walls around the interior court of a building at Uxmal, we have this tribute to the artistic skill of the decorators. It would be difficult, in arranging four sides facing a courtyard, to have more variety and, at the same time, more harmony of the ornament. In some of the ruins, and especially at Kopan, there are clusters of four-sided stone pillars or obelisks varying from 12 to over 25 feet. These are elaborately sculptured and show human figures, ornamental designs, and many inscriptions. One or two statues have been discovered, and a statuette 12 inches high is described. It is made of baked clay, very hard, and the surface is smooth as if coated with enamel. At Palenque are remains of a well-built aqueduct, and near the ruins, especially in Yucatan, are frequently found in the remains of many finely constructed iguanas or artificial lakes. The bottoms of these lakes were made of flat stones laid in cement, several layers deep. In Yucatan, traces of a very ancient paved road have been found. This road ran north and south, probably led to cities in the regions now covered by the great wilderness. It was raised above the greater level of the ground and made very smoothly. These antiquities show that this section of the continent was anciently occupied by people admirably skilled in the arts of masonry, building, and architectural decoration. Some of their works cannot be excelled by the best of the constructors or decorators. They were highly skilled, also in the appliances of civilized life, and they had the art of writing, a fact placed beyond dispute by their many inscriptions. A more particular account of some of these ruins will be given in another chapter. And I'm going to stop right there, because I'm going to talk about this book even more. And I'm going to stop right there for this. Here in Chicago, we have something called the L trains. And L is short for elevated. The trains are elevated in the air. The ancients had architectural structures like bridges, walkways that were elevated in the air. Not only on the ground level, but they had something that was elevated, made of stone. All right. They also had, like I mentioned so many times, man-made lakes, what I just read, that they constructed. With rocks buried deep under, and then it was filled with water. So they constructed their own man-made lakes that allowed them to maybe travel more freely to where they needed to go about. They had ancient highways that went north and south, and a lot of this stuff have been, since they haven't been kept up, they're buried under the forest, because they had not only the highways there, but gardens right along the roads of the highway. Our ancients had this. Now, unfortunately, the American Negro and so-called black people globally believe that all black folks come from Africa. Believe that most of us in America come from the West African slave trade, and that's a goddamn lie. But when you tell Negroes this, you're stealing other people's history, you shame your African history. No, when you deny this, you shame your true Aboriginal Black American history. Then you have other goofy Negroes who sit there and tell you that the first black folks that came here were after Columbus, which is asinine and silly. You have black people coming over here as friend and foe. I showed you pictures of Hernando de Cortez. I told you he was a Negro. He was just a Negro coming from Europe. You had many different black conquistadors. You had plenty of them who came over here trying to conquer. You had your quote, black people coming straight out of Africa trying to conquer over here. Other black people. There's images on one of the codexes. You see black people enslaving or have white captors. All right. It was this white liberal on YouTube. He talks about black people being here, but he tried to say it was 3 different races. No, it was 2. They show one images of white folks clubs following their black masters, let's just put this say, and they were probably retainer type slaves. Then they showed these other white people who were the black people were fighting against, who they showed them capturing, but he tried to say they was basically their mercenaries, whatever, fighting on the side, helping them out, which is a goddamn lie. Whether liberal, conservative, both of them are racist. These people do not want you to know this history. Many of you Negroes don't want to know this history. You just want to be slaves from Africa. And you want to try to make every single black person a damn African. That is silly. That is what bugged me what Runoko Rashidi was doing. He seen a damn ancient figure that was in Mexico, obviously of a very short, dwarfy Aboriginal black person, and want to call it an African. Not every single black person I said is an African. When you think that way, you get stuck. And when you lumping all of us as labeled us as, quote, African American, you basically run away your true origin, your true history. You got these Negroes traveling all the way to Africa, 1,000 miles to Africa, claiming to look for their damn history. Going to them dungeons in Senegal talking about the point of no return, when their history is here in America. But since you have so much self-hatred that you can't think out of the box, that you just believe that all dark-skinned black folks with woody hair come out of one location. And then some of you stupid enough to use the term sub-Saharan. And you fall into geopolitical racist terms that these white scholars have used. You are already here. I'm going to continue banging this issue because most of our people are already here. But you have so many Negroes who just want you to focus on Africa. Why do we talk about black people in Europe? And why do we talk about black people in the Americas? We have Africa. Man, shut the hell up. That just tells me that these Negroes don't know what the hell they're talking about. That's why I don't listen to Umar. That's why I don't listen to Tariq Nasheed. Because they want to typecast certain black people coming from certain regions. Or better yet, say that we're not Aboriginal and want to use terms like foundational. And then attack people who call themselves Aboriginal, which we are Aboriginal. We're not African. But anyone who's really studied our history know that there are black people. You have black empires globally. I mentioned before, Melanesian, Micronesian, Polynesian. Melanesian is the Black Islands. Okay? I wish some of you niggas stop calling these paler Asians melanated people. No, they're not. Melanesian means black. It's just another term for black, dark. That's what it means. It doesn't mean white. It doesn't mean pale-skinned Syrian. It doesn't mean pale-skinned Turk. It doesn't mean a pale-skinned Latino. Melanesian means dark. That's the Black Islands. Poly means many. Poly means many. That's what poly means. And micro, as a microchip, means small. So you have the black, the many islands, and the small islands, which all of them were Negro in the first place, originally. I don't see how this hard to comprehend. But some of us has bought into multiculturalism, and some of us went through this educational system that we have been heavily indoctrinated and brainwashed. I've done studying this stuff for years, man, and I know that we were already here. Majority of us, not some of us, or the overwhelming majority of us was already here. But some of you keep talking about you looking for some slave ship. In so many instances, they took the black folks here to the Caribbean and they brought them here. Or they took some here over to Spain or to Portugal and into Africa. But some of you don't want to even see that. Some of you don't believe that black people own slaves here, own white slaves here. Yes, they did. And then obviously they had them in North Africa. The information is there if you want to seek it. Many people do not want to seek it. It's sad because it's right there under your nose. It's right there in your face. And these names, man, these names are just laughable because it's just right there staring right in front of your face, man. This stuff is literally in your face. It literally is. Like I said, I had an idiot to come on my page who tried to tell me that those black people in Europe were, quote, African. And then try to question my knowledge in this. This dumbass, I guess you're trying to say that they could not have been European because Europeans were white, which is insane. Because what we know as white people did not come from Europe; it came from Central Asia, and it originated from an albino form of us. And they could not live in the warm climates. Those albino blacks, some of them had to stay in, or some of them were basically expelled or killed. And you see, even over Africa today, the way they treat kids who will suffer from albinism, they treat them as outcasts. Some of them want to chop their bodies up and use them for witchcraft purposes. Okay, I'm not saying that's good, but I'm just saying this is the mindset. So no pale-skinned people are indigenous to a warmer climate. They're not indigenous to that climate because they will die of skin cancer. They cannot survive in that hot climate. So start using common sense and stop being afraid of learning your history. Learn your history on the other side of the Atlantic. And some of us are afraid to learn our true history because we realize that these pale fake Indians that's running around, these white people who claim to be Indians, these $5 Indians, and these white Asians, they're not the original Indians. The original Indians are you. But you're going to have to wake up and know that and learn that and see that. I know it's hard because you begin dishing a certain way. But you are the true Indian. Peace, brothers and sisters. I'm probably using another thing out of this book. Again, talking about Palenque and Copan. Peace, brothers and sisters.